Okay, are we live?
Yes,
Can
we
you
are.
check it out? Okay, excellent.
Got 2 people watching.
All right, good. Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome friends, families, and potentially new friends on the stream. Thank you so much for coming. So before we get started, first, as we gather here today, both in person and online, we'd like to recognize that the Puget Sound is on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people, and we acknowledge the history of dispossession and forced removal of Indigenous nations that in the process of colonization. We currently occupy the stolen land of the Puyallup tribe, who have been the caretakers of this land and sea since time immemorial. This is the first, but not the last step in our commitment to the ongoing fight for justice for Indigenous. So this event, Blood, Bones, and Brushes, Art and the Body, is dedicated to elevating the voices of queer, non-binary, transgender, fat, chronically ill, and disabled people, and any and all intersectionality between. This is the first of 4 in a series, each event dedicated to a single artist whose art and work deals with the body or bodies in some capacity. This event is a collaboration between the Art Temple Studio and run by myself, Anna Neshaba, and the Daspy's Performance Project, run by my lovely co-host Sophie Marie Schack. So founded in 2022 by myself, Art Temple Studio was envisioned as a studio that centered the disabled experience and that cultivated collaboration with other disabled artists. Inspired by a near complete lack of queer and disabled stories in mainstream media, we craved a space to channel our projects and our work and make art directly with and for our own community. This is a place where the values of imagination, access, community, and education are paramount. The Daspy's Performance Project was founded in 2018 as a loose collective of queer dancers by Sophie Marie Schack. Over the last 4 years, the collective has created 8 short dance films and several live shows throughout Western Washington. In January 2023, the group incorporated into a nonprofit dance company. Our mission is to support queer and disabled dancers in creating accessible spaces to work in dance professionally. Our work focuses on the weird and wonderful aspects of folklore, queerness, and disability. So if you enjoy this event, either in person or online, and would like and are able, we are accepting donations. For this event, we accept cash, check, and Venmo payment methods. And if that's not your thing, that's totally okay. Enjoy the event, enjoy yourself. That's all good. We would also like to make a special thanks to Ray Neshaba Nara, who has donated and helped compensate our speakers for this event. So thank you so much. And as a final note, before I turn it over to Sophie, we would like to thank Crescent Moon Gifts for providing the space and for being so communicative and excellent in the process of organizing this event. So thank you, everyone. And we're really excited to hear from Wayne. So I will lead you to it.
Great. Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm really excited to announce one of my best friends in the whole world, Wayne Halliburton. Wayne is a musician and taxidermist from Austin, Texas. He is involved in the independent music scene and composes for animations and performance. His taxidermy work spans from realism to fantasy, and he specializes in small mammals. Let's welcome Wayne.
My host has stopped my video, so if my host could please turn my video on. Hi, everyone. Yes, I am Wayne. I am really excited to be here tonight. I am really grateful that I have been able to Zoom in for this event. Like Sophie said, I'm currently in Austin, Texas. And so please feel free to stop me if my lighting gets too dark. I am a chronic big light avoider. So I don't even have like a central light, and I will need to go to a different room if the sun sets. But all that aside, I am super excited to talk to you guys today. And it has been really great setting up this event and collaborating with everyone. And this is a topic that I am really passionate about, and something that I've been working as a taxidermist for about 2 years now, and something that I can talk about endlessly. So of course, when I was asked to give a talk, I kind of fumbled and then had no clue what to talk about. But I've put together something I am excited to show you guys, or rather talk to you guys about. I'd like to start by just giving a quick background of where I come from as a taxidermist. It is different for everybody. So this is my like personal avenue. Um, Back in 2020, I I came home from college. I was living at home. I was extremely bored and depressed. And in Texas in the summertime, there tend to be a lot of dead frogs that get run over by cars. And I started collecting those, which also is where my name comes from, which is Dead Frog Dreams. And I started collecting these frogs, and I reached out first to a herpetologist to ask about the best way to preserve them. And, he told me the typical scientific way to do a wet specimen or a dry specimen, but recommended that I reach out to a taxidermist for more information. And so I just started on my own, and incredibly, my uncle, his friend, knew a taxidermist in the area, and I reached out and I met my wonderful mentor. Her name is Nishi. Her shop is Nishi's Niche, and we have been working together for about 2 years now. I'm coming up on 2 years later this year. So it has been an incredible journey. Like Soph was saying, I work on lots of animals, but I specialize in small mammals. Um, so that introduction, getting that out of the way, um, what I'd really like to talk about today is my experience with taxidermy and how it relates to the body and also to death. And also, just quick for Soph, please cut me off whenever you need to. I may ramble. That's fine. Feel free to shut me down. But I think that working in taxidermy has been a really healing process for me. Um, and I think that it is an incredibly healing process for a lot of other taxidermists I've seen, especially newer taxidermists who don't fall into the stereotype of what many people think a taxidermist is. There is an incredible community that's growing of, taxidermists of color, queer taxidermists, especially trans taxidermists. There's quite a lot of us. I had an incredible pleasure of meeting quite a few of these people last year at an event up in New York called WonderCommer, um, which is run by Divya of Gotham Taxidermy. She's amazing. Please check out her work. And I've been asked before, and I'm sure it probably won't be the last time, but why people think that the queer community has such a tie to the taxidermy community. And I think it has a lot to do with how we experience death. Um, and of course, that is different for every single person. And of course, um, it is different for all different cultures. And I am coming from a very singular mindset. Um, but I do think that I have experienced a lot of death in my life. Um, and there is a wonderful thanatologist named Cole Perry who studies death and different rituals surrounding death. And she talks about big deaths and small deaths. And so uh, when I am talking about experiencing death in my life, I mean both what Perry considers a big death, which is physical death, and small deaths, which are life-changing events that we still grieve, but may not be given the chance to grieve for different societal reasons. Um, it's something that comes along with the the mentality that I've experienced a lot in my life. Like, you just have to keep trucking, and there's not a lot of time in, especially for me as a queer person, as a poor person, as a person with mental illnesses, to take the time to grieve these big and small deaths in my life. And I am not going to spend a lot of time talking about the experiences surrounding death, specifically from being queer, just because, especially at this moment, it's a really intense topic. And to be perfectly honest, my brain needs a little bit of a break after many weeks of the Texas legislature. Um, but I think that it is definitely a correlation that you can see. We have the very obvious AIDS crisis, where we lost so many of our elders, but of course, we also struggle with so many other aspects of death in our community as well. Um, and again, that's big death and small death. I consider the fact that we have to fear for so many aspects of our life daily, small death on the regular. And besides being queer, I was also always just kind of a freaky little kid. Um, and so I've always loved ghost stories, loved dead things, not always enjoyed being around them, but was definitely intrigued by them. And I think, like I said earlier, taxidermy has been really healing for me in this way, because it is not only an artistic outlet, but it also creates comfort um, around the idea of death and being around death. And every dead body that I work with is special, um, and they all hold memories. Um, I work with a lot of pets, and each pet has a lifetime of memories for that person. My mentor and I get in a lot of pets, and she isn't really an emotional person. She is like, leave the tears at the door, let's do business. And that's great. But we have to remember too that everyone who is bringing us a pet to work with, that is both a small death and a big death for them. And so getting that right is a really emotional, intensive practice, uh, which has a lot of beauty in and of itself. And even when you don't work on pets, that was still a living creature at some point. And my mindset when I work on these animals is to consider the body as a material. And this is the same as we would consider, using plants to make dyes or paints of material, or weaving fibers into fabric, or using wood for carpentry. These animals are a material for me in the same way. And I think examining that has also helped me to realize that my body is a material. Um, and so in taxidermy, I am using these body parts to create a physical piece of art. But we can use our bodies as a material in so many different ways. We can use them for dance. Our body is a material in music, um, our speech, our thoughts, everything that we create comes from the material of our body. And I do want to be careful that this isn't being framed in a capitalist way. I I don't want the idea of body as a material to be construed as a need for production. Um, because I think that a lot of times there is a need um, for artists or for art consumers to capitalize on their work, whether that's because they quite literally need to make money or because there is a mindset in our society that says if you're not profiting off something or if something is not profitable, it is not worth the time and effort. And I definitely want to keep away from that line of thinking when we think about the materials our body gives us and the materials that taxidermy gives us, um, and more think of it in a way of awe at everything that we have been given to create with. Um, and you can take that spiritually or unspiritually, whichever way you'd like. But getting this mindset from getting into the habit of working with dead animals has helped my day-to-day mindset and to think about all of the things that I'm grateful for in my life, which is definitely hard a lot of the time, and not always possible. um, but it definitely is a really wonderful tool to have, and think I am making leather from an animal that was once alive. That leather is used to make art. That art is going to last, if you've done it correctly, longer than I ever could. It'll have a lasting impact on the world moving into the future. When I pass, the art that I've created has the ability to live on and to bring joy to future people, to bring materials to future people. Um, and I do think, of course, I mean, I have an armadillo on my desk right now that I got from a coworker. Her mom passed, and everyone in the family was like, I don't really know what to do with this armadillo. Nobody wants an armadillo. So maybe not always in the immediate aftermath of my death will my art be enjoyed. But just like I used materials from something once living to create that piece of art, it gives me peace to know that when I die, someone else can use my materials. Not quite literally, there are a lot of legal loopholes that you have to go through to do human taxidermy, and I don't trust everyone to do that. But um, people can use my materials, the art that I've created and put into the world, my music, um, my words, their memories of me to create something new, whether it be a physical new work or just a memory, um, that can last on for them the way that I'm creating memories for my clients. I have a project that I'm working on right now for one of my clients, and she's a dog trainer, and we're making a bracelet, and each charm is going to be a different dog's tooth. And some of those dogs have passed, and some of those dogs are still alive. Um, but this is something that is a culmination of decades of life for her. It encapsulates the work that she's done. She gets reminders of the animals that were in her life. Um, I have made jewelry from other dog teeth before, for other clients. And it always makes me happiest to know that that's something that they're going to cherish. Um, and moving completely past the idea of materials and of the emotions that I create and all of that. Um, the connection of taxidermy and science is one of my favorite points. Um, Taxidermy has been closely linked to science for quite a lot of the art's history. And I do want to recognize here that I mean taxidermy as an art in the Western world. There are indigenous people who have been creating leather, creating works from animals long before any of us ever thought it up. And by any of us, I mean white people ever thought it up. And we have stolen quite a lot of what we know from their practices. Um, but in the modern modern scientific world, there's quite a lot of links to taxidermy, and that goes back hundreds of years. One of my favorite artists who isn't a taxidermist is Anna Morandi, and she was an anatomical wax artist who her works were extremely realistic and some of them extremely scientific and some of them a little bit more creative and art led. uh, but we view her now as an artist, but at the time she was a scientist. And taxidermy is still used in museums across the world to preserve animals that we may never see in person, or that we have long been extinct, or animals that aren't safe to be around in person. And so it has given me a way to learn constantly about my fellow living creatures, even past their death. There are times when I am skinning an animal that I get to learn about anatomical structures, the way that their muscles work, which makes me think about the way my muscles work. Or the inside of lemurs are blue, like their skin on the inside is blue. And that's a fact that no one would have known unless you're looking at the inside of a lemur. Um, and recently, a client came to my mentor with a woolly rhino skull, extinct for question mark, question mark, question mark. How long? I don't know. We don't know. I could have looked it up. I will be honest, I did not. Uh, and he wanted a two horns actually added to that skull because the horns are made from keratin and proteins, so they dissolve over time. So when you are looking at the skull, you are not getting the full extent um, of what you would have if you were actually looking at the animal. And doing these kind of projects, doing any taxidermy project requires quite a lot of research. We have to look through, reference photos, not just for pose, but for each element, to make sure that our animals are looking as realistic as possible. Um, and you have to watch videos of the way that they move. And I personally go down rabbit holes and end up learning quite a lot about the animals that I'm working on, just because that's the type of person I am. But it gives me an understanding of parts of the ecosystem, parts of the world that I never would have had access to before. And I think it's a wonderful medium to use for teaching people in the future, people now, um, children, children are both equally freaked out and love taxidermy. I think that there is something unnerving about taxidermy for a lot of people, especially people who aren't comfortable with the idea of death. But it is such a powerful tool. And I've had kids that come in to the store before, or I've been showing my family members' kids, and you can see the wheels turning in their head, thinking about so many different concepts, thinking about the animals that they're actually learning about, and getting to see these animals up close, and getting to feel them, and learning about different aspects of their bodies, um, by talking to the artist about them. Um, but also the idea of death is always kind of at the back of the mind. And so they are also taking in that concept as well. And I am a big believer that everyone should plan for death, or if not 100% plan, um, have an idea of how they feel about it rather than avoiding it. And so even when I am learning scientifically about what I'm working on, um, that idea is always there, uh, kind of in the back of my head, and it is comforting. It's a comforting feeling that I haven't always felt comforted by. And I think the more that we know about ourselves, the more that we know about each other and about the world we live in, um, the more comfortable we can be with the aspects that are a lot harder for us. And I do want to say that I know that taxidermy as an art form, it's not for everybody. I am not advocating that everyone go out and get a scalpel and start hacking open the first roadkill that they find. Some people, it's not for them. And there are ways to appreciate the art without being directly involved in it. God knows that I have so many incredible artist friends whose work I absolutely love. Um, and I know vaguely what is happening in their work, but I could not replicate it. I could not sit down with a piece of clay and make myself a mug. I could, in theory. Um, but it's not going to mean to me what it means for my ceramicist friends. The same way that I can create a piece of taxidermy that has intricate and intense um, detail and emotions and joy for me and for whoever I'm making it for, that might not resonate the same way with my friends who are not involved in the art. But that doesn't mean that we cannot examine each other's art and learn from each other. Um, and I think that taxidermy as a medium is one of the best mediums to do that because it is a great conversation starter. It is also an incredibly difficult medium because you have to be a painter and a sculptor and you've got to deal with blood. So you've got to have that going for you. You got to be able to stomach it. Um, and you have to have a really keen eye for the details that make it lifelike. And it's expensive to get into. So I will say on the get-go, um, it's not as accessible for many people as it could be. And I acknowledge that. I got extremely lucky in finding the mentor that I did, but that doesn't mean that everyone is going to be able to just jump right in the way that I did, of course. Uh, I need to rewind my train of thought here, go back to where I was previously. Uh, in the Q&A, please feel free to ask me any questions about anything I said, because I do have an A to C brain, not an A, B, C brain. So when I'm talking, I might forget the beginning of my sentence and have to redirect, or I'll say something I said before. Clear up any questions that you got. Absolutely. Um, but back to the idea of taxidermy being a great conversation conduit, is that so many people are intrigued by it and need to know more, don't know enough, or um, I met a wonderful person at the bead store the other day who perfectly fine with bones, um, with the concept of death, all of that, terrified of taxidermy. And that started a conversation. And it wasn't a um I didn't feel offended by it in any way. We talked about it. She is great. I will be returning to this bead store probably at least once a month for the rest of my life. Um, but it sparked an interest, and it got us talking, and it got us connecting with each other. And that is all I can ask of any work that I create, is that it is able to create a connection with someone, and that it encourages slightly deeper thought into one of the many facets of taxidermy, whether it gets them thinking about mortality, or whether it gets them thinking about science, or if they have technical questions, or if it creates a bond between us, like it did um, with my new friend in the bead store. The fact that it can be used to create these emotions, and I think of these emotions as another material of the process, is one of the most important things about the art. And I think about, that is the importance of, um, or that is such an important part of so many different pieces of art. And I also like the ability that I have to play around with so many different ideas in my taxidermy. Um, I believe I might have been mentioned on the initial posts about this event. Um, but I did compete with a piece. It's on my Instagram if you'd like to see it, called Pussy Whipped. I took an abandoned cat and turned this cat into a little BDSM kitty. She's super cute. I love her so much. But she's fun, she's playful, she's funny. And at the same time, I was able to tie some meaningful parts of my identity into her. She's got two handkerchiefs tied to her tail, um, just as a nod to hanky code. Uh, and all of her, sex toys, they're all cat themed, but it's an homage to the community. And this piece was able to connect with so many people. And if you hear my dog chewing on his horn, I apologize. He's being really noisy over here. Um, but I think something that gets lost in a lot of art is that we can also have fun with it and still have a really intense meaning, a really concrete message. And not everything that's important has to be solemn. Death doesn't have to be solemn. My ideas of my body don't have to be solemn. I can know that one day I will die and not feel scared, but feel joy at all of the intricate moments of my life, the way that I feel curious and excited to learn more about all of the facets of life um, that the items I work on had, and know that one day my body or the things that I've created in this world will be a material for someone else. And I know that I said that earlier in the talk, but I do think it's really important. And the fact that I can do that with happiness, with joy, I'm not worried about leaving a legacy. I I don't care if I can make a huge change, if I'm famous, but the fact that I can impact any small part of my life or of other people's lives is one of the biggest things that I have learned from being an artist in this medium. And one of the things that I think other people should bring to their work as well. And I see that Soph has given me my 2 minutes warning. So I am okay to wrap it up there. I know there's a few pieces left, an interview and a Q&A. And I know that Soph has to run out at some point. So if we want to move on to the interview, I'm ready for it.
I'm gonna put us into a different mode. Hang on, Wayne. Oh, you can keep it. Don't keep your notes. Okay. So thank you, Wayne. And our questions are going to be a little bit all over the place. Some will be a little bit more fun and lighthearted, and some will be a little bit digging into some of the darker stuff that you talked about, because that's what I'm interested in. But we're going to start with a hopefully easy one. What is your favorite animal that you've ever worked on, and what is a dream animal you would like?
Oh, okay. So I think this is really hard. Um, I've worked on a lot of sloths. I think they're really cute. It's really fun to make their faces. They have these like nice, cute little round faces and little round noses, and um, they naturally look really happy. So you can make them like look super like characteristic and just like nice little guys. Um, I really love them. They're a lot of fun. And I've been really lucky to work on a lot of them. My mentor has clients who have a lot of sloths, so that's actually what I got going on. And was yeah, they're just so cute and fun and nice. Um, so that's probably my favorite. dream animal. Mm, this one's hard. There are quite many animals in the whole world. Um, I think okay, this is what I'll say. I think my dream animal isn't necessarily like some crazy animal or some hard animal that's hard to get, but I do have a really hard time with snakes. And so I think my dream animal would be a snake, but just really well done. I would love to make a snake that I am very proud of. Any snake, it can be anyone. I don't mind which one. I want him to look nice.
Awesome. Okay, we're gonna jump into some questions on queerness because you brought it up a few times.
Yeah.
So first, earlier in your talk, you discussed the fact that living as a queer person, especially like as a genderqueer or trans person right now, is scary in the U.S. Do you think that working not just in taxidermy but in like death-centric art can provide catharsis for queer people, or do you think that it's more so, or maybe just in your own experience, is it cathartic, or is it more of just an outlet for the frustration?
I think it can be both. And I think it also depends on your experience as a queer person. I will say that I recognize that I do have a level of privilege. I'm a white queer person. I'm also trans mask, and I know that it is really hard being trans femme. Um, and I also have the ability, should I choose at the moment, for now, to pass as cis if I really need to. Um, that probably won't last very long once my mustache kicks in, but I'll acknowledge it for the moment. And so I think for me, it is right now. It is both an outlet and catharsis. Sometimes when I'm having a bad day, it is really nice to work with my hands. Um, and I talked with my best friend and my soulmate Win about this a while back. But working with my hands also feels very butch and lets me access that part of my queer identity in a very positive way. And so when everything around me is so negative, having a very positive experience tied to my queer identity and something that I do all the time, it's really soothing. It's really nice.
Beautiful. You kind of just answered my next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Has the physical act of working in taxidermy, like a physical art form, influenced your understanding of your own embodiment as a queer person, how you live in your body?
Yeah, definitely. I well, one, like I just said, there's the whole butch aspect of it. But it's a really physical art form. Um, and so I do have to be really in tune with my body. Um, and it is also given me, I think, confidence in my body as well and my presentation as a queer person. I think it can be that way for a lot of people. Having something that you are good at, whether it is a hobby or your passion or some side project or a party trick or whatever, being really confident at one aspect in your life can spread to the other aspects of your life. And being a taxidermist um, is something that I think I really needed, and it has expanded to the other parts of my life as well.
I'm glad to hear that. Okay, just a few more questions. I specifically work with other disabled artists, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about health and what that has to do with working with bodies of other creatures and your own body. So how has your own health, whether it be physical or mental, either been influenced, has it done influencing, or has it changed over the time of working with animals?
So I think there's several different pieces to that. Um, on one, I think it has really improved my mental health. I've noticed that on the days that I spend all day long in the studio and I'm working and it's hard work, I'm working with my hands. Those days I feel so much less exhausted than the days when I go to my customer service job and it is less physically demanding, but it does take a lot of it takes a lot out of me. And so as I've transitioned to do more taxidermy, um, in general, my brain has been feeling a little bit better. Uh, but I also think there are so many things that I see in the animals I work on. Like I cut one open, I see a tumor. Or if they have, I just got a leg in from a client and it's a dog leg and the leg was amputated. The dog had bone cancer and you can see that in the bones. Um, and I think seeing that in other creatures makes me think about what's happening in my own body. And I and this is a practice that I have also, you have influenced me a lot on, I will say that, is like listening to my body and what it needs. But sometimes I get out of that practice and seeing it in other animals is a reminder like maybe I should do a little check-in on myself.
You should always be doing check-ins. Okay, so these are the last three are slightly tangential, not tangential, but they're a little off the wall, as in they have nothing to do with anything we've talked about so far. But first, what does community look like in the taxidermy world right now, and what would you like it
Um, yeah, that's really great. The the taxidermy community, I think, is definitely growing. A lot of the people that I'm connected with in the taxidermy community are, um, I've met some of them in person, but a lot of us interact online together. Um, and so, like I was saying at the very beginning of my talk, I think that the taxidermy community that is not like old straight cis white men is really coming along and it's really exciting to see that. uh Personally, the a lot of the taxidermists that I have met within my area, especially game taxidermists, you know, doing things like deer and elk and bobcats and things like that, they are still incredible artists, but I don't feel that same connection to a lot of them. It's kind of like a men's club, a cis men's club, I should say. Uh, and so I'm really excited to see more and more people getting into taxidermy that represent a lot of the different backgrounds that we all come from. Um, because we all deserve to be in this art form, um, and it's a really beautiful one to work with, and I think that we can really bring a lot to the form as it becomes more popular with not old curmudgeons.
as I think is the case with most art forms. Okay, last two. This one you had mentioned at the top, and again, this is my own propaganda about how everyone should have discussed death and death plans. So, what are yours? Do you have them?
You know what? I'm a hypocrite, actually. I don't have a will. I have thought about my death quite a lot. Um, don't call the hotlines on me, but um I I definitely would like to there's these big compost death bins. I would love to be composted in one of those. I think they're so wonderful. I am going to make my way back into the earth no matter what. So I would love to do it that way. As far as other plans, I do have intricate plans as to who my items go to and what gets taken care of when and all of that. I just need to get it like legally written down, notarized, all of that good stuff. Um, my partner the other day jokingly was like, "Yeah, I have a will," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you do? That's so exciting!" And then they were like, I that was a joke. Why would I have a will? I'm in my 20s." I was like, you need a will."
I'm really glad that you and I are on the same wavelength on that. And then our final question before we open it up for folks who are on YouTube and here physically is, I want you to give 2 shout outs to any artist of any field that you think folks need to check out, whether they're taxidermists who've written about it or just enjoy.
Yeah, so I mentioned one of these taxidermists earlier, and I'm not sure if I put them in the chat, can you put them on the stream, like in the comments for people to check out?
I can.
Okay, great. Because these are two, they're both taxidermists. I love them so much. So the first is Divya, who's from Gotham Taxidermy. I'm just gonna put uh, I'm gonna put that in the chat, so that you can copy paste it on over for everyone. Um, but she is an incredible taxidermist. She heads up WonderCommer every year. She mainly works with birds, which is, I don't do a lot of bird work. And so I think that her work is really impressive. Also queer, love to see it. Um, Incredible. And also a huge birder, which is so much fun. I would love to get into birding, but I also think that that is dangerous because I already do not have any time. So I would say Divya. And then the other taxidermist that I am going to shout out, I will put his information in the chat too so that you can share it, is Nick De Castillo. I met him last October. Sorry, it's Del Castillo, not De Castillo. And he is a trans taxidermist. Just recently got top surgery. Shout out, Nick. I am so proud of him. But he does some really great work. He's got this wonderful piece that's a fox that is hanging down, but it's like bejeweled, and there's like a rosary on it and little like blood jewels coming out of its mouth. It's really incredible, and he has a lot of other incredible taxidermy work as well. But I am putting his information in here. His Instagram is Ranba Derby. So
Great. Your face is going to be blocked for a hot second while I
okay.
add. Thank you so much, Wayne. I'm going to turn it over to Anna while I get these names in the chat for the Q&A.
Hi, this is just so that I don't have a projector in my face, as I've just made Sophie do. Okay, so Wayne, are you okay sticking around for an extra 5 minutes or so? I know we're almost at time.
Yeah, I absolutely. I've got nothing to do after this, so I'm free
Okay.
for the evening. I'm gonna eat some mochi later, but that's it.
What kind of, wait, no, I won't ask you that.
That can be part of the Q&A. It's matcha, so.
Well, first, I'd like to open it up to you guys. If you have any questions, and I'm also monitoring the chat. I don't see anything yet, so you guys have. All right, yes.
I want to know about human tax.
Okay, so we have a question about human taxidermy.
What are the legal?
And what are the legal problems surrounding human taxidermy? And if you have anything to say about that.
It is so hard. It is, you have to go through a lot of legal loopholes if you are going to do human taxidermy. So first of all, if it's like you're getting something amputated or something like that, you cannot just like take your organs or your leg or whatever from the hospital. You need to have it taken to a separate location first, like another entity has to take it. Then you have to get it from them, but there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of and I think the laws might differ between states. So please look at your local laws, because I don't want anyone out here like taking their leg and getting in trouble for it. But it's tough. There's also a logistical problem if you are going to do like full body taxidermy. We don't have hair the way that most mammals have hair, like all over their body. And so when you're creating the leather, it's leather. So you're losing a little bit of the like texture and the look that you would want if you're wanting it to look super realistic. There are a ton of leather bound books out there though, from back when everything was real sketchy about where you're getting your bodies from. And that's always fun to look into if you're interested in human taxidermy. There is there's incredible amounts of leather books. Some of them very not great in where they came from. Some of them, hi dog. No, I can't play right now. I do love you though. There's a leather bound book that is made from the skin of a prisoner that he specifically requested this book be made from after he died, and then given to the family that he robbed, that ended him up in prison. It's a really incredible story, so you should check it out. This is my dog, by the way, and before you ask, yes, I won't be doing a full body taxidermy when he dies, but we will be keeping bones and probably tanning the hide.
Yes, excellent. No, I had a friend who like had surgery and really wanted to keep like the parts of her that were taken out. And from her perspective, she was like, it's mine. Like it belongs to me. It doesn't stop being mine once it was taken out. So that's just really interesting to hear about that.
Yeah, I think some of it has to do with like health reasons and like biohazards and things like that. You are much more likely to get things like your teeth back. Those are pretty easy to get. You just ask for them. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a question from the chat. First, someone has thanked you for your speech, so that's great. So question is, what has been the interplay between more conventional art mediums you have worked with and taxidermy?
Yeah, so like I was saying earlier in the talk, you have to have a lot of different artistic practice to do taxidermy. So my mentor taught me how to hand make my forms. So that's essentially like making a sculpture. So I take wire, I bend it into the shape that I would like. And then I do wrapped forms. So I take, it's a type of hay-like material and I wrap it with string, but I create the general body that I want. I also work with clay to create the features underneath the skin. So you have to know how to work with that medium. And then I of course like I paint on the details afterwards. You do lose some of the details when you tan a hide, because it's not like there's blood that's coming to the skin surface. Excuse me, sir, that's rude. There's not blood that's coming to the surface, so you have to kind of paint it to make it look more lifelike. But you also have to paint your bases. So if you're doing a tree and you need to tear a hole in it to put the wire in, then you've got to cover that and um, paint it to look realistic again. So a lot of this I have had to learn, because I don't think I'm necessarily an incredible visual artist in all of these different forms. Um, but my mentor's been really incredible. Well, I say that, but she really just says, make it look like the picture. But it works for me. So yeah.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, and one more question
Mhm.
from, oh wait, we have one more and then I will get to you, okay? So they want to know about your favorite project and if you are working on anything new.
Yeah. Okay. My favorite project, I think mm, I think my favorite project is probably the cat that I did. It was a lot of fun making it. And I really, it was more whimsical. Um, it was less realistic, and I got to kind of play around with it and play around with form in a new way. And it was a really great learning experience, but also it was just a lot of fun to work with it and um, create something a little more flamboyant.
Yes, absolutely.
Um, so I've got several small projects that I'm working on right now. Um, I have I was talking about the teeth bracelet that I'm making. I do jewelry and things like that for clients sometimes. So I've got a couple of those smaller pieces happening. I have the leg that I'm working on for the client whose dog's leg was amputated, the bone cancer dog. And then I have a bigger project in the works, but it is a secret for the moment. So
Oh, okay. Well, we'll
it'll
have to
be
block.
revealed in yeah, it'll be revealed in due time. But
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. So everyone go follow Dead Frog Dream so that you can keep track of the secret project. Okay, yes.
Yeah, conversation. I'm curious, you mentioned about, how do you, the owners, how do you do it? You, well,
Yes. Okay, so how much of that were you able to hear?
Not much. Could you repeat it for me?
Absolutely. Okay, so there's kind of two questions.
Mhm.
So the first one is how do you handle, like, because obviously your clients come to you and they have just had, a pet pass. How do you incorporate the client's vision of their pet and the personality of their pet with your, sort of art and interpretation of taxidermy? And then the second one was about small death and big death. I'm sorry, could you repeat
how does, how does the, how does their
Yes. And then similarly, how does the client sort of process of grief influence your interpretation and your creation?
Yeah, so it's definitely you have to kind of take it like client by client. Some clients have been planning their pet's death for a really long time, and or they've had work done before, so it is not as outwardly emotional for them. Some clients really trust my mentor and are like, go for it, like I know that you're gonna do great. um, but you have to kind of take that like with each individual person. And so there's always a line, people see their pets every single day. And we can watch however many videos or see however many pictures, um, and it doesn't do justice, because we're not getting the full movement of the animal, the little moments that you've experienced, things like that. Um, so a lot of times you just have to do the best that you can. You have to get it as close as possible. And when you have a client who recognizes the art form, it makes it easier to do that. Um, I it's part of the reason I like projects like the teeth bracelet I'm doing, because I'm not gonna mess up the tooth. Like it's a tooth. They're not looking for the whole animal. Um, but it is hard. And that's why I was saying earlier, my mentor, she's not great at like the emotional side. She, for a while, she was like, I'm not going to do pets at all. Um, and some people, she's had hides in her store or things that have been finished for pets that people haven't picked up for years. They get it done in the moment because they are grieving, and then they process their grief, or they put their grief aside and they don't want the reminder anymore. So she has um, the art that she's created there, um, and no one has come to get it. And that's something that you also kind of have to know is a possibility. I've been lucky that of the pieces that I have done personally that are like memorial pieces, uh, I don't have, I haven't had a client um, yet that has been in that state. And it's something that I understand, but it's also something that as artists, you're like, okay, I put this work in, like, um, so I think there's a level of trust that you have to have with the client, and the client has to have with you to have a really successful piece.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, and I have a question from from the Nuclear Moose. They say, "Hey, Wayne, it's me, your boyfriend." I wanted to know what your favorite depiction of taxidermy in media is.
Oh, this is hard. There's a lot of really bad depictions of taxidermy in media.
Yes,
There are so many bad ones. Um, the I Okay, I'm not gonna name the all of the terrible ones actually, because that would make me really upset. So I would say, oh, this is really hard actually. This is very difficult. Hello, boyfriend, by the way. Hello. Because now I'm just thinking of all of the ones that I don't like.
bad one. Yes, of course.
Yeah, this is difficult. I think I think some of the best depictions of taxidermy are with like documentaries of real people. But if I'm going to go with my favorite, I am a very big Pushing Daisies fan. And I don't necessarily think that the depiction of the taxidermist in that series is 100% accurate. And I can tell, I'm like, you guys really didn't put the work in, but they do. It's really fun. It's really cute, and they do have some very tender moments surrounding death, between the taxidermist and Ned, and I think it's super cute. I think it's later on in the season that this happens. But yeah, that I would say I'd say the Pushing Daisies taxidermist. He shows up for like 2 episodes. He's got a bear in his apartment. He makes Ned a little dog. The dog is really not that well done when the bear is perfect. So I'm like, hmm. But it's sweet. It's really sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, well, I don't think we have any more questions either in person or in the chat. So I would just like to take a moment to say thank you so much again for coming here and sharing your time with us today. This has been so interesting. And for anyone else who's on the chat or in person, we will have another speaker in 2 weeks. We'll actually be talking with Sophie, Sophie Marie Schaff, the co-host. So make sure to tune into that or again to hear about their piece and their talk. So thank you so much, Wayne. You are good to sign out. All right, thank you. Goodbye. And I'm going to stop the stream for the people online. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you again in a few